And in the first year of our relationship, he introduced me to a world I never knew existed. Also, at the end of our first year, we found out that Donnie had AIDS. So we bucked up. I learned how to do a cyclovir drips. I learned how to manage medication. Okay, we can deal with this. Initially, I wanted to die with Donnie. But somehow, you find the strength and you do what you have to do. God gives you the strength you need when you need it. Donnie could not handle what had happened to his life, and he grew increasingly distraught and abusive. And one evening met me at our front door with a baseball bat and beat me. I moved in with a friend who was a transgendered individual, Lee, who shortly thereafter was shot, gunned down in the street by two young children under 18. I left Florida. I returned to New York in the mid-90s. I'd come out to myself as a gay man, and I did so outside the church. I took classes in secular, that was simple enough, colleges. I learned about historic and literary concepts of iconoclasm, which means shattering the sacred images. I worked hard at becoming as zealous an iconoclast as I had an evangelical. Queer theory replaced theology as my passion, and topics such as the emergence of queer nationalism became my life. At that time, through groups like ACT UP and Queer Nation, I saw our community prophetically calling out to the larger culture and church, saying, "No more! You're killing us!" Silence was no longer an option. People were dying daily, by the hour, and all the church wanted to do was to quote Levitical texts of terror. I now know that my iconoclasm was probably one of the healthiest things I could have done. It began the slow and often painful process of detaching the religious barnacles that had grafted themselves onto my soul. I think this may be a lifelong process for those of us who have been abused by religion. I wanted to get past the abuse. I started attending MCC New York, and under Reverend Pat Brumgardner, if you ever have the chance to hear her, please do so. I found a new way of approaching Scripture. Listening to Pat, I discovered liberation theology, which has as its basic premise that God is always on the side of the oppressed. MCC New York presented me with positive examples of queer relationships. There seemed to be a theme in MCC New York during my time there, and that was that the Bible was our story too. The story began again for me, but this time in a different way. The context of the Samuel story begins with his mother giving up and separating herself from her child out of religious obligation. The child Samuel is contrasted to the priest Eli and his sons. His sons' names are Hophni and Phinehas. They're Egyptian names. And Egyptian names in Hebrew Scripture usually indicate shadow of an impressive historical memory. Hophni and Phinehas are pictured as abusing the people of Yahweh to the point of sexual violence and exploitation. Their priestly father, Eli, who is physically blind, is decidedly blind by choice to the abuse perpetuated by his priestly sons. Scripture tells us that the word of the Lord was rare in that day. The established religious institution had shut its eyes to the abuse of the children of Yahweh. The glory of the Lord had thus departed. But God, as God often does, was to do a new thing and speak again through this child given up by his family. God said no more, and called this lonely child to speak out against the abuse of those who seemed stronger. Today we have an opportunity to participate in the Silent Witness program. As we learned from Gandhi, non-violent resistance, in our silence, in our non-reaction, we take back our power. We say no more. We were fighting back, yet my anger began to consume me. I started drinking very heavily, 5 times out of 7 a week. You see, I couldn't get past my fury at death. Everyone I loved had been taken from me. My anger at rejection and ecclesiastical abuse. Intellectually, MCC New York was helping me. But I closed myself off from the people in that community emotionally. When people would invite me to go with them to have something to eat after church, I would run away. I would say no. I did not want to be hurt again. Christians had nearly destroyed my self-image, my view of the world, my sense of reality. I did become a member, and during that time, I visited Union Theological Seminary. I was able to participate with Troy Perry at a demonstration at the World Council of Churches